Go ahead.
Okay, so good afternoon or good night, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Caribbean Regional Midwives Association Leadership Workshop. As you all will be aware, it's over this series of 4 sessions, 3 Fridays in July, and the last day would be on Thursday um, in July. So we want to welcome you all. We welcome our guests and our facilitators. We welcome our participants. We expect 27 participants from 9 different countries. So we welcome you all. We have been in CRMA working on this leadership workshop. It is something you all asked for. So we are so happy to be able to oblige to bring it to you. It is so exciting being here tonight, and I'm sure you will all be excited, and especially at the end of this, the completed 4 sessions, I know you would be more than excited. So we welcome again all our guests, as well as our facilitators. So I would now call on Chanel, Deborah Cook. I think she's on to say the opening prayer. Deborah?
Hi, good night, good evening, everyone. Let's just bring God's presence into our proceedings. Bow our heads. Kind, loving, and merciful Father, we thank you for life. We thank you for today because this is the day that you have made, and we would rejoice and be glad in it. We thank you for the privilege of being able to gather virtually and network with our regional and global partners to improve skills and create leaders in our midwifery profession. We thank you for our leaders and all those persons who are representing and who made this event possible. Tonight, we invite your holy presence and we ask that you will take control of this evening's proceedings. We pray for a successful workshop, and at the end of these sessions, that we will be empowered with knowledge and skills to fill leadership positions for the betterment of the world. We ask that you will continue to bless and guide each and every one of us. In your merciful name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Chanel, for starting us off on the right foot with
Deborah.
Sorry, Deborah. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Deborah, for starting us off on the right foot. You know why? Because I had in mind to ask Chanel to do the prayer. That's why. But you came on before her. So thanks again for that opening prayer. We want to move now to the CARICOM song. So let me see. Let's hope that we get it to play. And we all know, where is it? My gosh. We all know how we love this song. Where did it go to?
And to introduce it to those who have never heard it before.
So this is the CARICOM song. There are actually people in CARICOM who've never heard it before. I don't think so. I'm not seeing it now. I know. I tested just now, so you know what I will have to do.
You had it decreased on your computer.
I had what?
You decreased it?
Yes, I know, but now I'm opening up the thing. It isn't opening up. Because I tried to save the WhatsApp thing. Okay, so what I will have to do, I will have to play it from my email from, oh gosh, CARICOM Anthem. Here it is. Okay, so are you all seeing the screen?
Not yet.
But I shared it. Okay, so where am I now? I don't know why it's not coming up. Why you're not seeing it? Because I'm seeing it. Okay, let me try again. Sorry about that, Shirley. I didn't need to stop the recording. All right, so I'm not getting this song. Here it is right here. Yes, yes. Here it is here.
Hit your share button.
Yes, but I don't, when I click onto the song, I lose you. I lose everything. Let me just see. You don't see it from here?
Distant lands, our forefathers came, some seeking adventure, some bound in chains. Through battles waged and fought, through victory and pain, by test of their courage, our freedom was gained. In homage to those gone before us, the heroes of lands in the sun, we vow to join hands and to focus on building one Caribbean. Raise your voice and sing of your Caribbean pride. Singing loud and strong, your hearts beat as one. Celebrating song as we rise to heights where we belong. Sound of victory drum, oh Caracon. So great and diverse be our ethnicities, the bonds that unite us are stronger than these. We die, we pray, we love, we dance and we play. We relate to each other, rest in your way. Today has a people right. Determined and steadfast we stand. We look to a brand new horizon. The future now firmly in our hands. Raise your voices high and sing of your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong. Feel our hearts beat as one. Celebrating song as we rise to heights where we belong. Sound of victory drum, oh Caracon. Hele, hele, bravo. Open your sing calico. Leve, leve, wow. Naki you drum calico. Tabo, ya tabo, bravo. Open your sing calico. Leve, leve, wow. Raise your voices high and sing of your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong. Feel our hearts beat as one. Celebrating song as we rise to heights where we belong. Sound of victory drum, oh Caracon, hele, hele, bravo. Oh, for your sing Caracon, leve, leve, wow. Hele, hele, tabo, ya tabo, awo. Naki your drum Caracon, leve, leve, wow.
So that was exit full screen. So I hope all those who hadn't heard it before will know it now. And that is our CARICOM song. And you would find that almost every event that CRMA would have, we would play that song and push that song. And we're asking everyone in Caribbean to learn the words. It's a beautiful song. Yes. So we want to move on now to Dr. Shirley Curtis, the president of CRMA, who will bring her opening remarks. Dr. Curtis.
Thank you very much, Marcia. And our facilitator for this evening is Mrs. Marcia Rollock, our immediate past president and chairperson of the Education Committee. And thank you very much. So good evening, everyone. I want to thank you, each and everyone, for taking the time and seeing the need to attend this leadership workshop. State of the World Midwifery Report brought to light and to the forefront a number of issues. Some good, some positive, I should say, and some not so positive. One of the positive things was that midwives are capable of meeting 90% of the sexual, reproductive, maternal, newborn, adolescent, and healthcare essential needs. That's a positive point. However, it shows that there is a lack of midwives to do the job. In fact, they said we are lacking 1/3 of the midwives that it will take to do the job of a midwife around the world. Compounding the problem, it also revealed that there's a limited opportunity for midwives to hold leadership positions in some countries. Well, there is a saying that goes, if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. And to ensure that our midwives are not on the menu and are at the table, the Caribbean Midwives Association have decided to put on this workshop to prepare our midwives to sit at the table. CRMA has planned this workshop for, or what we will call a lecture series, for the next 4 weeks. And on a Friday, we really appreciate you taking the time and blocking out these next 4 weeks to attend this workshop. We have engaged some of the best minds in our region and beyond to prepare and to deliver the content. And so we hope that at the end of this lecture series, that we will develop a cadre of midwives with the motivation and equipment to embrace the challenges and to confront them, not just to confront them, but confront them with knowledge and confront them with skills that they have garnered from this week of these 4 weeks of lectures. And before I close, I must also thank UNFPA, who have partnered with CRMA to put on this 4-week lecture series. UNFPA has always supported CRMA in its endeavors, and we want to say thank you to them even at this time. So we say to you, get all you can and can all you get, and then move forward with it and apply it to your everyday management of your clients, as well as you move up to the table in maternal and child health in your region. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Curtis, for those opening remarks. Next, we would invite Ms. Pandora Hartman, who is the representative for the Americas on ICM. She isn't, I've not seen her present. I know she's on duty in India. She said she would try to log on, but I'm not seeing Pandora on. So I would endeavor to play a tape that she sent along. So let me see if I could share. I need to share screen again. Julie, you disabled me. Still? Right. And so let me see if I could get just the oh, sorry about all of that.
Greetings, midwives of the Americas. I bring you greetings on behalf of the International Confederation of Midwives, where you, along with 142 other midwifery associations, envision a world where every child-bearing woman has access to a midwife's care for herself and her newborn. Our mission to strengthen midwifery associations and advance our profession by promoting autonomous midwives as the most appropriate caregivers for childbearing women and our focus on keeping birth normal. We are delighted that you are embarking upon a leadership series that ties closely to the strategic directions of nursing and midwifery, and our goal for additional midwifery leadership as ICM celebrates 100 years of service to women and families, as we continue to embody the phrase that midwives work. As you know, the importance of leadership is well recognized as we build from our Young Midwife Leader program to develop you as our mature midwife leaders and actively continue to advocate for each country. Thank you for being here and for your time as we continue to push for midwives for every mother.
So we want to thank Dr. Hartman very much for sending her words to us. She said the time difference, she would have tried to log on, but see, she was not able to, but she did send some words of welcome for us. So we want to thank her for those opening remarks from Dr. Pandora Hartman. Yes. Next, we would invite Dr. Sandra Land, the UNFPA representative, to have some opening remarks. Sandra?
Good evening, everyone. And I'd just like to start by thanking CRMA for inviting UNFPA to make opening remarks at this new activity on leadership for Caribbean midwives. I bring greetings from Dr. Vicky Camacho, the advisor for sexual and reproductive health in the regional UNFPA office in Panama, from the sub-regional office in Jamaica, and from the UNFPA offices in some of your countries. I encourage all of you to learn more about UNFPA's work in your countries and in the Caribbean sub-region. If there isn't an office in your country, you can contact the sub-regional office in Jamaica or Deborah Lewis, who has been the UNFPA midwifery consultant for the Caribbean since 2019. You'll find contact information in most of the midwifery documents that we talk about on the UNFPA webpage. The UNFPA mission is
Is she frozen?
It seems that we have lost Sandra. She did say that she would just come on and try to give her remarks, and she would not have been able to remain for the whole thing.
But I think she's frozen though.
Yes, so we have, we want to thank her for what she said so far, and if we are able to get her back on, we would have her complete her opening remarks.
I'm
So-
sorry.
Right,
Okay,
great.
there she is.
Right, continue.
How far did we get? I'm not sure what happened.
You,
We're talking about the regional offices.
office, yeah.
Okay, did you hear about the mission?
No,
Yes.
not yet.
You right there. You started
Right
talking
there,
about
yeah.
the mission. Yes.
Okay, let me just say, our Let me go back to the mission. The UNFPA mission is to have a world where every pregnancy is wanted, every birth is safe and secure, and every young person achieves his or her full potential. That mission is further focused on 3 transformative results areas: to end the unmet need for family planning, to end preventable maternal deaths, and to end gender-based violence and harmful practices. Every midwife, including those of you attending today, can surely see a role for themselves in achieving these results. UNFPA's support for midwifery in the region dates back to 2011, the year the first State of the World's Midwifery, what we call SOMI, was published. Even before that, UNFPA was working on midwifery in selected countries around the world, and including Guyana, beginning in 2008. A partnership with ICM, with regional associations like CRMA and the National Midwifery Associations, has been a key and consistent feature of the work. Between 2011 and 2018, the work was organized around 3 pillars of ICM, the 3 pillars of ICM: education, regulation, and association. This commitment of UNFPA to strengthening midwifery was further evidenced by the launch of the Global Midwifery Program Strategy 2018 to 2030. The strategy is structured around 6 elements or areas and has an implementation guide to support the work in each of them. Education, regulation, and association, the 3 pillars of ICM, are included. 3 new areas of midwifery workforce, enabling environment, and last but not least, a recognition of the contribution of midwifery to sexual and reproductive health services. An important feature of the strategy is an emphasis on the need for information to guide planning, as well as to monitor and evaluate the activities and programs we implement. Information is also important when we advocate to prepare and deploy more midwives. Last year, we all celebrated the launch of the 3rd State of the World's Midwifery, which called for greater investments in midwifery, including in the areas of leadership and governance. We expect that this workshop will help to strengthen institutional capacity for midwives to drive health policy advancements and help to prepare midwives for the senior midwife positions, which are recommended in SOMI. Evidence shows that access to high-quality maternal health care would prevent 54% of maternal deaths, while universal access to family planning could prevent an additional 30%. Evidence also shows that scaling up midwifery saves lives and strengthens the health system's response. We look forward to learning how this workshop and other actions help to accelerate important developments in midwifery education, regulation, and practice there in the Caribbean. So best wishes for a successful event.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Thank you for those words and letting us know more about UNFPA. And also, it's good to know, particularly for those who are hearing it for the first time, that we have a rep from UNP representing CRMA on UNFPA. So we have a UNFPA consultant, Ms. Debbie Lewis, who seeks the interests of CRMA in UNFPA. So we are represented, and so we are happy that UNFPA has been able to assist us with rolling out this leadership workshop for midwives. So now I would like to introduce our first facilitator for this afternoon. She is Mrs. Aubinette Roll. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Aubinette Roll. So Aubinette is an innovative healthcare catalyst with over 30 years of experience in this field. She commenced her career as a registered nurse and midwife in public and private healthcare sectors. At present, she serves as the acting manager for the Public Hospitals Authority in the Bahamas. 2 decades into her niche have furnished her with a wealth of experience, driving continuous patient and safety improvement across hospitals. She proves to be an ardent believer in cultivating a culture of patient healing through caring and collaborative operations. She's constantly developing, building, and expanding quality healthcare programs while streamlining and strengthening processes and identifying inefficiencies. Mrs. Roll successfully completed her bachelor's in law with second-class honors from the University of London, United Kingdom, and continued on to achieve her master's in business administration with specialization in risk management. She was successful in her placement at the Eugene Dupach Law School, where she served as president and graduated in September 2008. Upon graduation, she also received an award for the best all-round student. She was called to the Bahamas Bar in 2008. Mrs. Roll continued her education and obtained advanced training in healthcare risk and quality management, and is a certified professional in healthcare risk management from the American Hospital Association in occupation. She is an occupational health and safety specialist. She's also a certified international project manager, a certified project risk manager, wound care specialist. She's also trained as an international accredited mediator from the London School of Mediation, has a master's certificate in healthcare leadership from Cornell University. Mrs. Roll is a natural leader with a talent for motivating teams by drawing on exceptional communication and presentation skills. She recently launched her business as the Next Level Consultant. She is extremely resourceful and can adaptly garner collaboration at all levels, from the front line to the board level leadership, for favorable outcomes as a certified John Maxwell speaker, trainer, coach, and dispersonality assessment consultant. She's also the author of the book, The Rich, R-I-C-H, Experience, Expectations of Patients and Providers. She's married with 2 adult children, a daughter-in-law, and is Nana to a precious grandson, Amini King Roll. So ladies, I want to welcome our first presenter, Mrs. Auburnett Roll. Over to you, Mrs. Roll.
Well, good evening, everybody. And if you can give me the thumbs up, I'll just say, can you hear me? Well, great. So thank you so much, Marcia, for those warm remarks. And yes, people struggle with the name, but it's just okay. It's Auburnett Roll, but whatever they call me, I just answer to. Colleagues, it is definitely a pleasure to be here on a Friday evening. Not normally the best place that we want to be on a Friday, but we all understand the importance of continued education. And, you know, I think this is what it's all about. And I'm always excited to really give back and be in the company of colleagues like you, being a registered nurse and midwife myself. And I also want to thank Dr. Curtis for inviting me. And, you know, I hardly ever say no. And so, you know, I'm still in my office. I only blurred out the back. And I said, you know, let me just stay here and be with you. I promise you that I will do my best to not entertain you, but just keep you engaged. And really, there are some elements that I may ask you questions even from the beginning so that we could move forward. And so once again, I want to say thank you. And I look forward to you participating and really learning from this experience here tonight. The topic given to me tonight was the qualities, and I'm trying to get it to the slideshow in just a moment. Okay, I think we are there. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the qualities of a leader. And, you know, we hear the word leader and leadership all the time. And, you know, we sort of coin our own definitions of who we think is a leader, what we think leadership should look like. And I don't know if we've ever stopped to consider what leadership is really all about. And so I'm going to take you down a road. It's not a traditional path, You would hear some of these before, but I want to put you in the mindset of really thinking about when we talk about qualities, it's really how does a leader really get people to make the next step in their lives? And so that's very important for people to understand. And so, first of all, I want to ask you, what is leadership? Anybody, and I always tell persons, your answer is correct. It may not be aligned with my own, but it's correct. So I ask you the question, when we talk about leadership, and let's not do any cheating tonight. Let's just talk from how we feel. What is leadership to you?
Guiding persons along the right path.
Guiding persons along the right path. Yes, and that's some of the tenets of leadership. Anybody else? Two persons will be fine.
Influencing.
Pardon?
Influencing persons.
Influential?
Yes, influencing.
Yes.
persons.
And so listen, I'm not sure, it sounds like you're John Maxwell, speaker, teacher, and coach as well. But you are absolutely correct. When we think about it, leadership is simply the ability to influence, nothing more and nothing less. And that's how we say it in John Maxwell, because when you think about it is, people don't follow leaders who are going down the wrong path, not at all. People follow leaders who they feel will either influence them to move to greater heights, those persons who they feel can bring value to where they see themselves moving. And so a leader has to be an influential person. So leadership is simply the ability to influence others to take the next step, not necessarily to remain followers, but leaders really prepare persons to become leaders. And I always say leaders prepare people to become the mini them. A leader should never be preparing people to be followers. All right. And so leadership is the ability to influence. So if leadership is the ability to influence, then how would you define who a leader is? One or two? Who is a leader? Nobody? Have I lost connectivity?
No,
In
you
the
haven't.
chat,
I
somebody
see the chat,
says
yes.
Oh,
one
I
who
can't
can
see it.
influence,
Present.
Yeah.
one who can influence or mentor another.
One who can influence or mentor another. I like that, and that is so. Anybody else would like to offer their definition? So if you're typing in the chat, if someone would be kind to read it, because I won't be able to see it while presenting.
Like someone, good night. Like someone says recently, so a leader is someone who influences or guides others along the way.
Right. And that's it. And we have so many different meanings of a leader. And thank you so much to everybody who contributed. And I also struggle with a single definition as well. And so I just created my own, and this is my definition of a leader. So, and that's why you see my name to the bottom. So I consider a leader to be a visionary who influences others to reflect, to learn, unlearn, relearn, and create a path for growth and development, understanding that there will be barriers, but with perseverance, hard work, and determination, they can achieve their individual and collective goals. That is how I viewed it. And when I did that, you know, I asked my husband, you think this could probably enter the Oxford Dictionary or something as who a leader is? But in my definition, I sort of pull out all of the strong tenets of what a leader should have. So first of all, a leader ought to be a visionary. A leader ought to see far further than others, and also have the ability to come up with ideas ahead of other individuals. A leader ought to be somebody who is reflective and has the ability, based on their reflection, to know how to make those changes. A leader must also be somebody who is continually learning, because when a leader stops learning, then the leader can't lead because they have nothing to offer people in terms of growth. And then as things evolve and change, we have to do a lot of unlearning and then relearning, all right? A leader is always one who is creating a path for growth and development, because you need to grow to move forward. But a leader also understands and has the ability to lend direction to individuals that it's not going to be a straight road. It's not going to be easy. But if you persevere, if you continue to work hard, if you continue to be focused, and if this is really something that you want to achieve, then it is possible for you to achieve your individual goals as well as the collective goals, because we're talking about leadership. We're talking in the workplace. So you have your individual, your personal and professional goals, and then you also have the goals of your department and the organization. So that is what I call a leader. All right. So a leader is somebody who possesses that, and with all of that, they have the ability to influence others. So let's talk a little bit about the qualities of a leader. I think I have about 12 points that I just want to take you down the road. And like I said, some of them are a bit different that we traditionally talk about when we're talking about quality of a good leader. I just want to start with some. One of the first and most critical thing a leader has to be and do is to be transparent with employees. Because the reality is the employees are seeing straight through you in the beginning. And so there are times when you're also going to have to make those crucial conversations. And then the diagram that I have there, crucial conversations are very painful, because normally when we get into the deep of stuff, and it's normally those crisis situations where we have to really have these crucial conversations, we find out that a couple things happen in these conversations, right? So you have opposing opinions, and therefore you have a lot of conflict, and persons tend to run away from conflict, right? But conflict is healthy, because at the end of the day, conflict only enters the room to be able to get you the best results. So not conflict where we're pulling down individuals, but conflict that's saying we disagree. I look at this, you look at this, and then we come together as a whole so that we could find the best solution. And so you have strong emotions. So whenever there's conflict, that's why persons turn red, they start using their hands, they move in the chairs, they stand up, and they even get a bit loud. Strong emotions. And because of that, the stakes are high. We have to come to a decision to move forward. So one of the main things is to always be realistic with your team. You see, with crucial conversations, it's just three things. You can either avoid them, or you could face them and handle them poorly, or you could either face them and handle them well. So a leader has to live in a world of reality, right? A leader has to be able to say, what's going on. And, even today, as I smile, today I was the acting managing director for the Public Hospitals Authority. And today I received my confirmation as managing director. And, the ability to come on this day to be able to talk to colleagues about the importance of leadership is very, very important moving forward. So you have to face reality. So it's difficult sometimes when I'm talking to my senior executives and saying, we just don't have funding. We just don't have the capacity to do it. But we have to be able to sit down and strategize how to move forward. But if you leave reality out of the room, you then have the assumptions that you're not working well. You don't understand the challenges that we have, and there is confusion. So the first thing is setting the reality and being very transparent with your employees. And the second thing is, as a leader, you need to know when to retreat. And that's really stepping back. You see, because when you're feeling confused or overwhelmed or lost, the first step in the process of regaining your footing is to retreat. You must step back. Everything is not meant for a response act. You need to take a break, step back, and just breathe. That's so important as a leader because every day, multiple times a day, you can be triggered to respond in a negative fashion. And so you must know the strings that make you respond a certain way and learn how to retreat. You see, because in the mix of chaos, or when you're too close to the situation, we tend to lose perspective and our views become too narrow and we focus on certain aspects that we likely can't control. So as a leader, you ought to be able to develop and know when to move and when to stop. Only when you step back and have the opportunity to breathe and look at the bigger picture will you be able to formulate a plan. You listen, I always tell people, and many of you are in the Caribbean, and I see some of my nursing colleagues here from the Bahamas. When we have the hurricanes and the tropical storms and we're looking through the window, our ability to see things right there is difficult. But listen, when we're in crisis and we're confused, it's just like a storm. It's unclear. So what do? We have to wait for the storm to pass to do our assessment. Well, the same thing as a leader. You have to wait, settle yourself, step back. And then when you do that, you can see clearer. And then your decision-making is one that is most effective. You see, if you're operating in chaos, the people around you will operate in chaos as well. Not only is that unproductive, but it is unhealthy and really it is unnecessary. The third thing is, after stepping back, then you need to now know when it's time to realign. You see, your values as a leader are guiding principles that help you make decisions and stay on course. Remember, when you started, understand where you are now and know where you're going. So you have a problem, you've stepped back, you now have a clearer picture. And so you know the reality that's now, but you also need to create where you're going. And as a leader, when your actions are aligned with your values, it doesn't matter what's happening around you, right? Because at the end of the day, your values will eliminate the confusion and will allow you to lead in the right direction. And so that's very, very important. And then, as I alluded to earlier, when and how to respond is critical as a leader. You see, after retreating and realigning, it's time to respond in a way that aligns with your vision and your values and leads to a productive outcome for you, your team, and your organization. You must communicate your next steps to those who look to you for leadership or for answers, because outside of that, they're just guessing. And it just hurts the organization, it hurts the department, and it hurts you and your leadership abilities. Communication eliminates inaccurate and unnecessary assumptions by your team members that can be damaging. You don't have to share everything. There is a right time. And so sometimes you can't share everything, but you can let them know right now we are in discussions. I know it's a concern. I'm not able to bring you the information, but as soon as I have some answers, I will definitely come back to you. It may not be aligned with what you expect, but you have to deliver it anyway. So however, as a leader, if people are asking you questions that you don't know the answer to, be honest. Just say that you don't have an answer just yet, but that you'll get back to them. Whatever you do, don't leave people wondering what you're thinking. Proper communication will eliminate the fears of those around you, and it will take some of the weight off of you as a leader. Never leave people out there trying to figure out what is going on. From time to time, I would hear people say that I don't even know what's happening in my own organization. I'm hearing it from the outside. And when you start to hear that, that needs to tell you that you need to change the culture, because that information is not coming down. There's no trickle effect of it. It's not cascading. And so we need to make sure that you know when and how to respond. The fifth thing as a leader is you have to be adaptable, right? Flexibility must be in the room. Rigidity does not work all of the time. And this is something that we struggle with, and especially in healthcare. You know, you have rules and regulations, and, you know, people will say, well, you know, for a typical example, well, only one person, we go to COVID, well, we have short visitations, one family member, and people are so rigid. And I have to remind people that, yes, they are the rules, but they can be changed based on the circumstances. So are you telling me, I have a loved one who came in here and wants to see me because the news isn't good, or they're dying. And you're telling me if somebody has 2 children and that you only could let one in because that's the rules. And so what is going to cause a disruption if we allow both in, whether together for a short period or one after the other, following the protocols of hand hygiene, social distancing, and adorning of their masks? What is going to change? Do you prefer a frustrated person who is losing a loved one that we have stopped for just 15 minutes versus a loved one who is already having a difficult time and struggling with the death that is inevitable, and being assured that they had an opportunity to be with their loved one? Adaptability has to be in the room. And when I talk about adaptability and flexibility, I'm not talking about conformity. I'm talking about the ability to use our wisdom to know when we can make changes. It means being adaptable to new situations, handle unexpected demands, and be ready to move at any moment. Change is painful. We all know it. But change will either come and leave some of us behind, or change will come and you will come on board and enjoy the journey. The sixth thing about a leader must be a strategist. You must be a strategist. We have seen that in COVID. A leader must know what are the next steps. You must be able to advise your team, how do we get there? Because a leader can get from A to B quick. But if a leader wants sustainability and they want the buy-in of everybody, you're going to need a team. So you also need to know, how long will it take to get there? What are the tools? What do I need? Human, financial, and capital resources. And the most important question in here for a leader is examination of self. Am I equipped for the change? And if I'm not equipped, what do I need to get there? Because guess what, as a leader, you need to be equipped first before you can equip others. And so a leader must be a strategist. And then a leader must always remind the team of the bigger picture. That is why a leader needs to be somebody who is positive. Because when you lose the ability to see the bigger picture, the persons who are following and working with you don't see it either. So a leader, keepers and communicators of the vision. A leader keeps it. That's your vision, you keep it, and you continually communicate it. Right? A leader helps people. People must be reminded of why they are doing what they do and the benefits that await them as a reward of hard work. You have to keep reminding people the struggle is real. Going to school is real. Staying behind and doing what you do is real. But you know the bigger picture. And so you have to constantly remind your team. That gives people reassurance that there is a bigger picture. I can do it. And give it to them in small chunks instead of the big picture one time. Right? And so a leader must be that person who constantly reminds the team of the bigger picture. A leader must also help with the development of others. That is your role. You are a leader because you have achieved some stuff that have moved you positionally to be able to help others. People require assistance from leaders to identify the steps from here to there. And it may seem simple to you, but it's difficult. You will have some people working with you right now who cannot tell you what are the next steps in their. They need some guidance. And that's why we need coaches and we need mentors. And that is the role of a leader. It's not that easy for everyone to do. And so a leader is always somebody who comes alongside them and help them figure it out. I always say a leader is just as positional as the cross, I say. In the front to lead and see, because you're clearing the path and you're clearing it for others to follow. And you must always be to the side, because that's when you get to give the whisper and the support and give the cheerleading that I'm here with you. And then a leader's in the back too, because a leader ought to know when to reverse the position so that you are looking in and you're allowing others to lead. Because remember, you're developing leaders, not followers. And a leader has to be there to help people make good choices, not necessarily right choices, good choices, because sometimes you don't know it's right until you start going through the process. People's choices define who they are and determine where they go. It's true that we don't choose everything we get in life. I have two buts there, so maybe but. Most of what we get comes from our choices. So as a leader, the more good choices you have made in your life positions you to help others navigate the difficult waters. Leadership isn't easy. I hear people say it's lonely. It's not lonely, but you have so much to do in leadership that your ability to have the friends and a little bit of free time is diminished. But if you are leading right, it's not a lonely environment. Because why? You are influencing others. So you always have people with and wanting you to pour into them. All right? And so leaders help people make good choices. One of the most important things is leaders not only promote teamwork, but they value it. People want to know how much you appreciate them first. Right? Because the buy-in isn't just going to come from the fluff. People know the heart. And I always tell people, your employees can tell if you're genuine. And there's only a short window that you could remain on the stage in acting mode. And so you need to appreciate and value the people as challenges escalate, the need for teamwork escalate. And we talk about that in John Maxwell. We call it the law of Mount Everest. You know, as things escalate, the need for teamwork escalates. We have all on this call seen that in COVID-19, in the heat of it. As things got tough, persons who you never spoke with before, weren't even desirous of working with before, had a different opinion about them, changed. Because what we did, we adapted to the environment, which was the reality, and it's teamwork that has us surviving today. No team can win and keep winning unless everyone works together. You see, you could win once, But if the players on the team are not playing and moving in the direction of the goal, your win will cease. And so if you want to keep winning, you have to keep the team together. So not only promoting it, but you got to value the players on the team. They all have positions. You just have to link and align them. So you also have to give the team hope. Listen, everybody wants hope. Even with COVID, as I keep referring to, the main thing is hope. People have taken the vaccines, the first, the second, called the primary series, the boosters. And if there's another booster, I'm ready to take it too. Why? Because we are hopeful that if we comply based on science, COVID would be eradicated soon. And even while that is happening, if we get exposed, the level and severity of our symptomatology will be decreased, not requiring critical care. Give your team hope. Don't tell them things that are not true, but give them hope. The first and last task, the first and last task of a leader is to keep hope alive. The hope that better is to come. Because, you know, hope is the foundation to the change. If you tell me nothing is going to happen here and there's no hope, then why should I change? But if you tell me this is where we're going and these are the steps, then I'm looking forward to the change. It's the staying power. Hope is the spirit which endures to the end and the will to win. The will to win. A leader must be a good listener. And we always say it. You see, if you're going to learn and lead, you must listen to the people because you won't learn from your own speaking. Let me repeat that again. I hope you're listening to me. You see, we do a lot of talk. We do self-talk. We do other talk. We hear ourselves talking to normally giving instructions. Right? As a leader, you need to listen to the people in the crowd because really what they're saying in the corridors and when you go in the cafeteria and when they're talking at the nurse's station is all of the inequities and the things that are not working well. So you must set yourself up to learn from them because they're giving you a gift of what's going on that allows you to fix it. Will it happen overnight? No, but at least you're listening to them. You see, and Woodrow Wilson said it correct. The air of a leader must ring with the voices of the people, not your voice, of the people. You see, the most basic of human needs is the need to understand and to be understood. The best way to understand people is to listen. Ralph Nichols. Don't take it lightly. A lot of times when people are talking, it appears as if you're listening, but a lot of times you're not. Before the person has finished their third word, you're already trying to formulate your response. That's not a good listener. And I know sometimes some people irritate us. Sometimes it's me, and I go, oh my God, please. And I'm saying, please, please hurry up. How did we get here? But as a leader, you must take the time to listen. You see, people know that everything they say to you may not happen, and it's okay, but they must be given an opportunity to be heard. All they want to know is that you heard them and you understand. It feels that they have a voice. It feels like they're a partner. And these people, once you do it, they tend to buy in because they trust you. And so that's very important. You see, and so as I wrap up here, I want to share with you, there was always an opportunity to self-discover and really find out who you are as a leader. As a leader first, you got to do the reflection. Who are you? Do you really know who you are? Do you really know your gifts? Have you tapped into them? Do you really know your strengths? And do you really know those areas that you need to strengthen? We're not all expected to know all things. We're only expected to know how to move forward and seek consultation, but do you really know your capacity and your capability? Use your experiences as lessons, remembering to turn your wounds into wisdom, because leadership is hard and you do get bruised and battered, even on the way to leadership. But as Oprah said, use those as wisdom. Those experiences become the steps that you build for further upward mobility and also to bring persons up to that level. They're your experiences. Your lessons are the best teachers. Write your story if you respond well. And that's intentional. If you respond well, you can really write your story and build your legacy. And that should be, everyone gets a chance to be a hero in a great story, but it's dependent on you. You have an opportunity, but it's how you respond. They are always preparing to say to others, follow me. Leaders are always preparing a way to say to others, follow me. A leader is always looking for a next path, a next way, and always looking for people that they could take with them to follow for a period. And then they coach and they mentor, they release, they become the cheerleaders, and then they can exit the scene and have a wonderful legacy. And so tonight, I trust that I would have been able to sort of spark a new level of leadership and the expectations of leadership, which is a bit different than you normally hear about. And I always say in your reflective moments, sit down and figure out of all the elements we spoke about, can you really tick the checklist and say that's what you do? And it's only for you. And if you're not doing it, then you have a sheet and you design a plan about how do you improve on those skills. And so I thank you for the opportunity to share that with you. And I look forward to hearing and possibly seeing some of you continue to climb that leadership ladder. And at the same time, be so proud of others who have followed and decided to take those leadership steps because you have been that great leader. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Roll, for that excellent presentation. Thank you for enlightening us on some of the qualities of the leader, as you said, not traditional ones. You know, you made us aware that, you know, one of the qualities is to be transparent with your employees, know when to retreat. And this is something that we really need to look at, know when to retreat, because, you know, when you retreat, people feel you're running away. So it is good, you know, for us to recognize that this is a quality of a good leader, to know when to align, because every retreat, we need to know how to come back on. You spoke about how and when to respond and how to adapt. I mean, also to be a strategist. And this is one of the things that as a leader, we really need to know what are the next steps. And also to remind the team of the bigger picture. And sometimes as a leader, we need, as you said, to be positive and maybe not to give them the whole picture, but we must be aware of the bigger picture and remind the team of their bigger picture in maybe sometimes small doses, depending on what the situation is. You spoke about helping with the development of others, and this is one of the areas that we would know as a leader. Yes, you must help people to grow, you know, one of the traditional ones, and to help people to make good choices. And this was very interesting. You know, when you said that the choice may be it may not be the best choice, but it may be the good choice. And this is something that, you know, we need to really look at. We spoke about value and promoting teamwork, and giving the team hope. And sometimes, yes, people sometimes are in so much despair, but if the leader is also in despair, the team is not going to move forward at all. And of course, the age-old one, the one we all know to be a good listener. So I mean, the presentation was really down to earth, mind-blowing, things that we can deal with on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. So we have some time. So could we have anyone with for Ms. Roll? I haven't seen any questions in the chat. But if you wish to pose a question, you could raise your hand as we have some time before the next speaker. The comments in the chat, very informative, a real eye-opener, great presentation, well presented, different than usual, and it was definitely, different than usual. I love your calm nature and delivery. Yes, and you could tell you're a good leader. Calm, not flustered at all. Any questions? Anyone else? You can either raise your hand, use the reaction button at the bottom, or put your question in the chat, or any comments that you may have about the presentation. Anyone?
No, we get some positive comments in the chat, but we can move on to the next speaker, Marcia, because then Dr. Seeley is here.
Okay, all right, great. All right, so we will continue with the sessions. We'll continue with our next session, communication of a leader. And this will be done by Dr. Wendy Seeley, who is the coordinator of maternal services, is it? MSN UE Barbados. So let me just read her bio. So Dr. Wendy Seeley is a qualified registered general nurse and psychiatric nurse who has worked in a number of areas. In 1986, she joined the Queen Elizabeth Hospital as a staff nurse and later served as a tutor at the School of Nursing Psychiatric Hospital and the Barbados Community College from January 1996 until August 2003. In 2003, Dr. Seeley was seconded from the Barbados Community College, where she worked as an instructor, to the position of training coordinator with the Caribbean HIV/AIDS Regional Training in Barbados, the HIV/AIDS program of the Ministry of Health, a position which she held for 10 years. In April 2013, Dr. Seeley took up the post of Chief Nursing Officer with the Ministry of Health Barbados, as well as Deputy Chair of the Regional Nursing Body. Dr. Seeley is currently a full-time lecturer at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus, where she is program coordinator for the Master of Science in Nursing and postgraduate diploma in pediatric programs, respectively. The latter program commenced in September 2021 and is a component of a collaboration between the Government of Barbados, Shaw Center for Pediatric Excellence, the Sick Kids Global Center for Child Health, Sick Kids Hospital, and UE Cave Hill campus. In January 2022, under her leadership, the Masters of Nursing program was expanded to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Additionally, since joining the university, she has designed a course entitled Entrepreneurship and Health Innovation, which was approved as an elective for postgraduate program of the faculty. Additionally, she placed second in the inaugural Innovative Cave Hill Campus New Venture Challenge with a project entitled Virtual Nursing Education and Research Academy. Dr. Seeley holds a certificate in nursing education with distinction and a Bachelor of Nursing degree, nursing education, with upper second class honors from the University of the West Indies, Mona, as well as a Master's in Education degree, Educational Administration from the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus. She also completed the Doctorate in Philosophy Education, which was Education Policy and Planning, in 2010, where her thesis focused on migration and its implication for education and training programs from the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus, Barbados. She has also completed courses in alternative dispute resolution, court annexed mediation, coordinated by the Supreme Court of Barbados. Other courses completed included the postgraduate diploma in public sector management with distinction, and more recently, the certificate in university teaching and learning, as well as other professional development courses. Dr. Seeley has been an active member of the Barbados Nursing Association, serving on the executive of that body as vice president and chair of the education committee. She also served as assistant secretary to the board of the Caribbean Nurses Organization from 1998 to 2002. In 2014, she was awarded the Caribbean Nurses Organization Honorary Award for Service in Nursing and Healthcare in the Caribbean region at the biannual conference hosted by the St. Lucia Nurses Association. Dr. Seeley is the mother of 3 adult children. Finally, it has not been all work and no play. Dr. Seeley is a member of the Virtuoso Ballroom Dance Institute and Modern Ballroom Dance Club for a number of years and is an avid ballroom, Latin, and line dancer who successfully completed medal tests with the International Dance Teachers Association at the bronze, silver, and gold levels in these disciplines. She's also very active in her church, the Cathedral of St. Michael and All Angels, where she is leader of the health ministry, member of the Pastoral Church Council, and synod representative to the synod in the local Anglican diocese. Through her life experiences, her philosophy for life has been shaped to inspire and to be inspired. Ladies, I give you Dr. Wendy Seeley.
Good night, everyone. I was wondering who you were talking about there at one point. But certainly it is my pleasure, and thank you, Ms. Rolla, and thank you, President, and your team for having me on this session. I really, when I saw the invitation, I said they must be having a layman session because it's Friday evening. But nonetheless, this is a great way to learn in the sphere of education and professional development, and I fully support your efforts. I will go straight in. I know that it is the hour is fast approaching, and as an educator, we want to make sure that we keep your attention. So my topic today, and please permit me to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Let me make the adjustment.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so within the context, so we just had a brilliant lecture discussion based on the qualities of a leader. And certainly it would have given you a lot of food for thought on how you should proceed as a leader. And as nurses, I believe that we are all leaders. Now, within the context of the scope that I was given by your president, she told me we wanted to talk about communication. We wanted to talk about having difficult conversations within the context of communicating effectively, but we also want to maintain what is this thing called advocacy as it relates to nursing. So you'll see on the screen that my topic tonight is communication and advocacy in nursing leadership, as I sought to capture and to bring to you the real issues and how you can really find ways of addressing them, as was presented by Mrs. Roll. She really set the scene for this, set the stage for this particular presentation, laying the foundation, and I hope to be able to take you through some practical experiences. I do have a few short videos, and I'm going to be pausing from time to time just to break the monotony, but I'll go right into the presentation tonight. I hope to be able with you to explore the differences in managing and leading, because I think sometimes this is always a misnomer that they're used interchangeably. Discuss the importance of good communication in management and leadership. Really look at identifying some tips for effective communication. We will also have the process, outline the process for managing difficult conversations, because those are the conversations which we don't want to have often, but we should have. And then we will discuss the role of nurses in advocacy. Someone has a hand raised. Jeanette Black has her hand raised. I'm not sure if that's an error or. Okay. Oops, what is happening here? Sorry about that. Right. So what's the difference between management and leadership? We heard a lot about leadership in the last presentation, but I wanted to put it into context that there's a difference between management and leadership. Often, sometimes we get them confused. Management consists of controlling a group or a set of entities or people to accomplish a goal, controlling. And leadership refers to an individual's ability, as you heard previously, to influence, motivate, and enable others to contribute towards the organizational success. So one is managing the operations, but the other is visioning and influencing and strategizing. Now, there are two distinct concepts which really should be married together and are inextricably intertwined with each other. But as we go along, I'm going to share a little more about the differences between the manager and the leader. The manager gives, and you can see on the left, the yellow, which speaks to the manager, and on the right, which speaks to the leader. The manager gives direction. The leader asks questions. You heard before, the qualities of a leader is to listen, not only to speak, but to hear. Keep your ears on the ground to find out what is happening. The manager has subordinates. They have people that they supervise. The leader has followers. The manager holds authority. So whenever you hear about management or manager, this person has some official, legitimate authority within the context of the organization. Now, you can have managers who are leaders, who are motivational, but all leaders may not be managers. A manager tells you what, because they're directing, they're controlling, they're planning, but a leader shows you how. They give guidance. Not to say that a manager who's a good leader wouldn't. So you may find a mix of leadership in a manager, but note what I said earlier, a manager may not be a leader. A manager may have good ideas, but the leader actions the ideas. They implement, they move them from idea to implementation. The manager may react to change. The leader creates the change. Now, change is a whole nother discussion and topic. The whole thing of change management and moving from one state to the other and keeping the status quo. And we know of Kotter and his change process. And we know of, we hear of Llewellyn and the whole resistance to change, which is so critical. But the manager may react and respond to changes, as you know, in our healthcare environment is very dynamic, and we have to be constantly responding and reacting to change. But the leader envisions change and recognizes that change and development is necessary for progress. The manager may try to be a hero, but the leader makes heroes. They encourage, they empower, they bring people along with them and encourage them to be the best that they can be, to move from one level to the next. The manager exercises power. We see that every day. They exercise their power. I am in charge and I tell you what to do. But the leader develops power. And as I wrap up this particular slide, I want you to be aware that there are leaders at every level. You may be the beginning, you may be the new midwife, you may be the new RN, you may be at the middle management level, whatever level there are leaders. Once you're able to influence and motivate people, they're key to leadership. So this shows you the difference. And if you have managers who are leaders, it's great. You will have a visionary organization. But we know that it is not always like that. But we want, wherever possible, that managers could be leaders. But also recognizing that we have leaders, that managers, you need to also recognize that you have leaders at every level. And you need to utilize their skills to assist you with managing, to motivate people and to encourage them to be productive in the work that they do. Please feel free as I go along that you may interrupt me. I could wait for, you can wait to the end, or you can ask me any question as I go along if you are not clear. I thought this is very critical because I want you to understand too that leading and managing go together. Although we separated them in the last set of slides to show you the difference, they go together. Everybody know a Venn diagram. We went to school, we did mathematics, and we did the interlocking the Venn diagrams and the overlap. And this is where they overlap. We have all the things about what leading is, vision, strategy, creating value, leading people, similar to what happened in the last slide, what we presented in the last slide. We have managing, which has power and control, managing work, maintaining the status quo and giving directions. But we see the intersect, that is where it is most critical, right there in the middle. They're all about accomplishing the goal, explaining the vision, the organization of the figureheads, motivating others, and mobilizing the resources. So they're both critical to making sure that motivation of people is key, mobilizing resources, because I don't care how motivated people are and they don't have the resources to support the work, the resources including whether it's human resources, equipment, or material resources, is going to be null and void because it's going to create frustration. I know as Caribbean people, it makes us very innovative, but at the same time, we still want to make sure we have the right resources to be able to deliver the quality care with a measure of ease without stressing ourselves too much. So as much as they're two separate entities, they overlap, they should overlap, because they're critical partners in managing our organization and leading in our organizations. So I teach a course in the Masters in Public Health program here at Cape Hill, and one of the things that I often teach is about communication. And this whole thing about managing and leading. And the key thing is that communication is a very, very important thing. People say on communication, they don't even tell you what communication is, the whole thing about information sharing and getting feedback. But it is one of the key characteristics. Having good communication skills is one of the key characteristics of a good leader. Being able to communicate clearly and effectively. Effective communication and effective leadership are closely intertwined. As a leader, you need to be a skilled communicator in countless relationships at the organizational level, in the communities and groups, and sometimes even on a global scale. And I reflected as I was making this preparing this presentation, I reflected on the myriad of times that I'm required to communicate. And I often reflect on the fact that you need to prepare. If you're going into any type of communication, especially even in your own personal relationships, you need to think through what it is you're going to say, how you're going to say it, how the other person might receive it. Because at the end of the day, you want to minimize any friction. You would have heard that I have three adult children, and not to bring tales out of school, but my youngest, who's a daughter, there are 2 boys ahead of her. She will constantly say to me, but you don't communicate with them the same way that you communicate with me. And I said, why? Why do you think that? And she feels that sometimes she's hard done because I put more pressure on her. But I say, I know I communicate with each of you differently because you're all different. You are all different. And thereby, the same way that you may communicate within your household differently, or you may communicate with people differently on a personal level, you also have to have multiple modes of communication in the workplace. One of the things, and I could share it with you, it is a document that I also share with one of my groups, the generational gaps. Because there are different generations of persons in the workplace have different expectations of each other and different expectations for themselves. So you have the baby boomers, you have the Generation X, the Generation Y, the Z, the millennials, and the list goes on and on. But even as authors have sought to give us the perspectives of the generations and what they expect, these are even changing. I once heard a young person say, who was just about 21 years old, I can't take the young people and how they behave. And I jumped, I turned around, I say, you can't take the young people? I said, well, how old are you? And which young people do you mean? They say, you know, the little 16, so that's only 5 years difference. So we talk about generation gaps, but we have to recognize that even as we speak to the decades, we have to speak to the mid-decades because these are even becoming smaller. So I say this to say that in workplaces, we have varying generations. And therefore, the way that we communicate with one can't be the way we communicate with the other. And we have to find what it is. Because I remember in looking at the younger generation, they have great expectations of the person like me who's in the baby boomer group. They expect respect from me. They expect honesty from me. But do they want to give respect and honesty to me? Maybe not. So it is, and it's not a negative, it is just a matter of the perspective. So we know too as baby boomers, unless we were forced into using the computer and the technology, we struggle with it, but it is at the fingertip of the younger people. So I'm just using that diversion to say that we have to appreciate the differences of the people we communicate with, whether we are the leaders or the managers, to be able to understand their perspective so that we can be able to influence and motivate and understand what makes them tick and what pushes them to be able to do better. So very, very critical that communication is key in our settings. Leaders who may be also managers or leaders at any level, wants to consider yourself or want to think of yourself as your leader, as a leader, and I'm not getting into this thing of whether leaders are born or leaders are made. As long as you are able to influence or motivate people, you need to think with clarity. Your thoughts need to be clear. You need to be able to express yourself and share that information. As I just said, I said it in the last slide, with a multitude of audiences. So from me as an educator, I find one of the things we often have to consider is the multiple abilities of the students in our classroom. This is the same way we have to consider the multiple abilities of the persons in our workplaces. So if you're going to send a message out, you need to determine you're going to send it in a memo, you're going to put it in an email, you may put it in maybe a video, you may put it in some other form, because people are visual, people are tactile, they want to touch things, so you may need to do it in a hard copy. Some people, you can send it to their WhatsApp, but people, you have to recognize that you have to use different modes to be able to capture the audiences that you're serving. And whenever you are writing or speaking or communicating, there must be clarity of thought. You must be clear. Sometimes we like to write, and I've been going to spend some time with that. Sometimes we like to write a lot of flowery language because it sounds pretty. But then at the end of the day, it's saying nothing. So the thing about it is that you really want to get straight to the point and focus on what it is that you want to communicate. And one of the things that I often do too is practice, especially if you're going to be speaking. You practice and you review before you speak, and you try to think of how the other person will receive it, so that when questions come, you are likely to be able to give a response. And if you're not able to give a response, you say, well, you know what? I have to come back to you because I really don't have the response for you at this thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we don't want to be caught not knowing, but I often say we don't know it all. And it's important that you hear that a good leader is one who listens. It's to hear. It's not always the time for you to talk. It's to hear what your people have to say, hear what others have to say, and what they have to share. Leaders must learn to handle the rapid flows of information within an organization, especially now in this age, the emails, the WhatsApp, everybody expecting you to respond like almost immediately. And sometimes even, I will tell you, sometimes it almost overwhelms me. And you know what I have to say? You know what? Stop. Stop, pause, and reflect, review, and then respond. Stop, pause, reflect, review, and then respond. Because you know what? Sometimes you see an email coming in and you want to get it done. You want to respond and get it out of the way. And you go and respond, and then you know that you can't take back those words that have been written. Yes, you can't take back those words that have been written. Or sometimes, and this is the real thing, sometimes somebody say your email and you say, what? What is it that they're trying to, what they want now, or what? Are you ready now to respond? And I'll be honest with you, once I had, I was working on a project, and I don't know if working on it, if you understand, working on a project could be very, very demanding. There are lots of deadlines and timelines. And I remember there was some pressure, and one of my colleagues said to me, Wendy, that email was very, very aggressive. Like the language itself, it wasn't intentional, but because I was hurried and I just wanted to get it out of the way. So you have to be so careful. Even we talk about speaking a lot when we speak about communication, but the way we write, what we write, how it sounds. When I have to respond to an email or anything, and this is the reality, sometimes I just draft it on paper and I draft and write down my thoughts on how I'm going to respond, or sometimes I edit and come back, because before I click send, because you want to make sure that the person on the other end, that it is as clear as possible for that person. So that multiple information flow can overwhelm you, but you have to find a way of prioritizing, managing, and calming yourself to be able to make sure that you are responding to the right person with the right information and so on. Because if you send the wrong information, you have to pull it back, and it causes it can cause a lot of confusion. Leaders must be purposeful and intentional about effective communication. And that reinforces what I said before. And they must know how and when to communicate and select the appropriate mode for the audience. Very, very key. that you use this information and you share it appropriately. There are 4 types of contexts that we communicate. We write, we converse, we present, like I am having this discussion with you now, and we facilitate, whether we are facilitating meetings or sessions for our staff. And it's very, very critical that in each of these contexts and that you focus on write. And if you know that you can't write well, for me, well, I've been forced to write so often now that you find yourself kind of flowing on your writing. But if you know that writing is one, you try and just spend some time practicing writing and get somebody to coach you to work. And it is no indictment. It is no indictment. Sometimes you may even pass it to someone to have a look at that for me and tell me what you think about it, because it's a matter of receiving constructive criticism about what you are intending for the audience. Conversing, when we speak, it is important that we speak in our own language, we speak in the language that people can understand. Sometimes you may have to use what you call a dialect or slang to emphasize the point, but it's important that as professionals that we speak properly. I could speak Bajan, if I want to, but in a forum, we have to know when, how, and where to speak. As I said, you can use dialect or slang or Creole to emphasize a point, but if you are in a forum where you're speaking to staff, you want to make sure that you're speaking at a level, one, that they can understand, especially if they're multiple, as a multidisciplinary group. If it's a group of doctors or a group of nurses who may understand, may use technical jargon, but even then, it's still important to clarify what you may mean, because not everybody may have been exposed to the information, and there's no indictment. Presenting such as like we are doing here this evening is key. I would never come before an audience and not prepare, because we want to make sure that there's a logical flow to the information that you're presenting, and that you want that when you leave here, that you may not remember everything that has been said, but there's something that will remain with you because of how things were presented. Facilitating is similar. Facilitating, we may have meetings and we want to make sure you have an agenda, that you have a clear direction of where you're going. You want to make sure the areas that you want to cover, rather than as it's all over the place. So it is a matter of organizing oneself and one's thoughts. But each of these is organizing oneself and one's thoughts to be able to make sure that your communication is clear. I always tell people that in my areas of presenting, I always like to have a script. What the script does, and it helps to keep me focused, because you can go off tangent, but what the script does is keep you focused on the task at hand or what you really want to achieve or speak about. Now, if you divert, it is fine, but it brings you back. But I always like to have a script to be able to speak to, so that it keeps you focused on the message that you want to deliver. So what are the 5 tips I want to bring to you for effective communication within the context of managing and leading? I want you to be able to communicate relentlessly. And what do I mean relentlessly? Communicate information, thoughts, and ideas clearly and frequently in different media. Keep your processes, and I have some notes to each of these slides that I will send the slides to you so that you could read the notes that I am sharing with you now. Keep processes open and transparent, and find ways to help smooth the path of communication for your team, employees, and organization. Shed all traces of detachment and arrogance, and take the time to talk to your people. Take the time to talk to people. Sometimes too, you need to always to be approachable. Sometimes when I'm very serious, people say, well, what happened? You look like you upset. No, I'm in deep thought. That's all. That's how my face spring up. I'm in deep thought. But always try to make yourself that people will come and talk to you. People feel that they can come and share. And I'm not talking about gossip. I'm talking about share about what is happening and what may be some of the challenges that they're having, because you may or may not know or observe. Simplify and be direct. Say what you mean, be direct. Don't hide behind complexity and pile on a ton of information. Direct information can be the most important communication. Don't beat around the bush, because sometimes we try to beat around the bush. We don't want to deal. If you have to deal with an issue that is sensitive, you will have to deal with it on one-on-one. You may have to deal with it in the area of privacy. But sometimes, have you ever been in a situation, and I've seen it more than once, you have a particular staff member or staff members who come to work late religiously. The supervisor will call a meeting with all the staff and talk about people coming work late. Tell me, is that addressing the problem? No, it isn't. You may have a staff meeting to address one of the things of punctuality or absenteeism. But at the end of the day, it is critical that there must be that one-on-one conversation or that difficult conversation with that individual or individuals, because it will continue, because it will go over their head in the meeting. It will go over their head. Simplify and be direct. Listen and encourage input. Pause. It is okay to be silent. Encourage the other person to offer ideas and solutions before you give yours. Sometimes we want to share the information. We want to give the information. But sometimes we have to step back and say, you know what? And yesterday I was doing a class called Socratic questioning, coming from the philosopher Socrates. And you say sometimes ask a question with a question. Sometimes the person asks you a question and you say, well, I am not sure, but give me your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the matter? And you'll be surprised the information that you will get back from them. And showing interest and respect for your colleagues will help to build trust and make that emotional connection for effective leadership and building the communication. Illustrate true stories. When you tell a good story, you give life a vision, a goal, and an objective. One of the things that you would have heard in the my bio that I won a competition. Well, not one. I came second in a competition at the university with doing a business plan and that kind of thing. And one of the things I sought to do to prepare myself for this competition is to do a course, a workshop in persuasive pitching. And one of the things that they taught us in that particular series was that you could tell a story. Sometimes sharing a story helps persons to understand that they're not alone and that it helps you to communicate to people, and people help to connect. It helps persons to connect to the issue at hand or what you're trying to achieve. So illustration with stories, our images or quotations are very key sometimes in communicating ideas to persons, because persons, adult learners, connect with experiences of others. And another key point, and this is all by the Center for Creative Leadership, you can go on their website and you can find some great thoughts and ideas about how to communicate effectively, especially as leaders. While effective leaders master the art and craft of language, speaking clearly and presenting logical and compelling arguments, skilled leaders also know that communication goes beyond words. If people hear one thing from you and see another, your credibility is done. So you need to be connecting with what you say. So it's like somebody said, oh, I can teach this and I can teach that. And when they begin talking, you say, what are they talking about? They don't sound like they know anything about this subject matter at all. So this is where I always say, if you don't know about something, don't even bother to say you know. You just be honest with yourself and with the individuals and say, you know what, I don't know quite a bit about it. Or I will always do too. If I don't know anything about it, I go and find out what I can about it as well. There's no indictment on that. Your behavior and actions communicate a world of information. So focus on alignment and be clear on the messages you send, even when you aren't saying anything. Because we know body language, cues can give us away. You might be saying one thing, but then there's a whole nother thing that you're giving off with your body language. So this leads us now into the part with difficult conversations. Sometimes in communicating, we have to communicate things that are difficult, things that are negative. And what is a difficult conversation? A difficult conversation is really a planned discussion about an uncomfortable topic or a negative experience where the goal is to share different perspectives, build mutual understanding, and develop respect. The idea is not to persuade or to win. It's to really share information, because we ever saw that, anybody ever saw a picture with the old woman or the young girl? Then some people like to see the young girl. Something, when this picture goes up, I'm sorry I don't have it here, but when you put this picture out, sometimes some people see a young girl and sometimes some people see the old woman. I invariably see the old woman. I don't know if that's indicative of my age, but I invariably see the old woman. But people have different perspectives. We have different experiences. We are socialized differently. So it is not to be able to, so sometimes people don't understand one another. And when you get to the crux of the matter, is a simple thing. It's just a matter of different perspectives. So I know you can see this diagram here that I have up. You have the lady saying that it is an M and the guys has it as a W. And then somewhere on the middle, it turned on a side and it looked like a 3. It could be a 3. So a 3. So difficult conversations help us to understand that you have different perspectives on the same topic. And sometimes the challenges that we have in the workplace with leading and managing people is just a matter of perspective. And therefore, we don't then speak to one another. We don't talk. We only communicate very minimally, and hopefully so when we are managing patient care. But we don't speak because, oh, they're wrong and I right and it's not done this way. But it's just a matter of a different perspective. At this point, I am going to stop sharing. And I am not sure, Madam President, do you have the 2 videos? The one, or you want me to pull them?
Marcia?
Yeah, the one to send difficult conversation, if you want, I could put it up.
The one
Yes,
on
please.
difficult?
Right. I'm
Okay, go ahead,
trying to
Marcia.
stop share. I'm trying to, oops. Right, I'm gonna stop sharing briefly. So that, yes, that you can do that. So we're gonna have 2 videos. One, they're very short videos, one on difficult conversations, and the second one on managing difficult conversations.
We often postpone difficult conversations, whether it's giving tough feedback to a colleague or having one of those recurring disputes with our spouse. Many of us shy away from having them. And yet, it is possible to go from feeling stressed and anxious to engaging in a difficult conversation with confidence and optimism. First, recognize that difficult conversations are hard because there is so much more happening under the surface than the behaviors we see at first sight. In order to go beneath the waterline of our iceberg, we need to explore emotions, values, and needs of ourselves and that of the person with whom we are having a difficult conversation. So, to start, what behaviors are you noticing for yourself, for the other? What are the deeper emotions underpinning these behaviors? What values are important for each party and which might be at stake in the difficult conversation? And finally, what is the deeper need each person feels? Having walked down the two icebergs, you usually become more understanding and empathic for yourself and others. You are now ready to define a path-breaking move, a simple action that can help to shift and change the dynamic. A path-breaking move typically is one that helps to reveal more of your iceberg or the iceberg of the other person. So, armed with these simple tools, what difficult conversations are you waiting to have? What does the iceberg look like for you and for the other person? And once you have explored those icebergs, what could be a first path-breaking move? For this and other perspectives on leadership, please visit think.org.
So that's the first one. And we see that for that first one, you need to do a lot of introspection. You have to see where you are. What is it about you? Maybe it's something about you. We can't just only see what is happening with the other person. It's critical to see what's happening with us. And you will get those videos so you can review them again and determine what is your iceberg, what is above the surface, but certainly what is below the surface that you are not seeing. It is not easy to look at oneself and be critical, but we need to do it in order to be able to have that difficult conversation where you are, but where the other person is as well. So let's hear what the other presenter now in the next video has to say about some tips for managing difficult conversations.
I'm Mimi Brown with Speak First. And I'm going to cover with you 5 practical tips on how to manage a difficult conversation.
We're not seeing it.
Okay.
As yet.
Plan ahead.
Sorry.
It's so vital to get clear on what you want the conversation to achieve.
Share screen. See it
I'm
now?
Mimi Brown with Speak First.
Yeah?
And I'm going to cover with you 5 practical tips on how to manage a difficult conversation. Tip number 1, plan ahead. It's so vital to get clear on what you want the conversation to achieve. Get an understanding of what you want to cover and why is this conversation really meaningful for you? More specifically, get clear on specific examples that have occurred that might have made you feel uncomfortable. Did this person say something out of the way to you? Did they seem to embarrass you in a meeting? Get specific. As one of my former colleagues used to say, in God we trust, everyone else bring data. Back up your feelings with facts. Next is consider how the other person may feel. As you're planning ahead, think about the venue in which you'll have the conversation. If you've been working from home, maybe you have to have a virtual conversation using a platform like Zoom or FaceTime. It's always better to look someone optic stem to optic stem when you're having and managing a difficult conversation. Tip number 2, tackle the real issues. When things get heated, when harsh words are said, when tears start to fall, it can get tough. It's important to know and keep in mind what your goal is. Is it to win the argument or is it to solve the dispute? Is it to make sure that you win or is it really to get to the heart of the issue so that you can make the relationship better? It's so vital that we do a check-in to ensure that we're checking in with ourselves as well as the other person. Get to the core of the issue and it'll make the conversation go that much better. Tip number 3, managing the conversation. The way you start the conversation will set the tone for the entire conversation. Make sure that you're clear up front, that you're really willing to listen to their side of things. How do you do that? By actively listening. Actively listening means that you're fully present, that you're not allowing distractions or other things like phones or text messages or emails going off distract you from the conversation. It means that you're not focused on what you're going to say next, but more importantly, you're focused on how you can dig deeper to understand where they're coming from. I call it the difference between heart-centered listening and head-centered listening. When you're heart-centered, you're focused on them. When you're head-centered, you're focused on you. You can easily manage the conversation by being fully present and actively listening. Tip number 4, be solution focused. Your goal here is to make sure that you can get close to a win-win as possible, still while hitting your desired outcomes. This is all about being assertive, making sure that you're not only understanding their side of the argument, but that you're getting your piece across as well. When you're solution focused, it's really focusing on how you can move forward in a positive and productive way. Think about what the goal is, what do you really desire, and work your way backwards. And tip number 5 is to manage your emotions. You don't know what they're going to say, nor can you control it, but you can absolutely control how you feel and how you react. It's important to do a check-in with yourself throughout the conversation. If you need to take a moment to take a quick pause, that's okay, because you don't want to regret any words that you may say later on that could potentially hurt that person. The other thing to consider is using something I like to call feel, felt, found. And it's a way to show empathy in a situation. It's one of the only ways to stop that dreaded amygdala hijack. You know, that fight, flight, or freeze part of our brain that when things get crazy, we tend to kind of wig out. Well, here's how you use feel, felt, found. First is the feel. And as you're talking with the person, you can say to them, you know what? I get a sense that you're upset. Or I get a feeling that you're not pleased. That's the feel part. The felt is, you know what? I felt the same way in a recent situation. Or I felt similarly last week. And found is, here's what I found helpful to move forward. Now, here's the thing about the found. The found is only brought in once you've given that person an opportunity to really work through their emotions. So if you do a check-in and manage yourself, you can also help manage that other person. And there you have it, 5 tips to manage a difficult conversation. We hope that you find these helpful. For these and more tips, make sure you check out the Speak First blog. And I'm Mimi Brown, and I'll see you in our next training session.
Great. So I really hope, we have these videos now that you can go over and you can check. I like the head felt, there's the heart felt, the feel, the felt, the found. These are ways that we can really, you got to know how you will maneuver it, but at least these are some real tips that you can use to really have that difficult conversation. And I always know that when people come from different perspectives, and it may not be, we call it difficult conversations, but it just may be challenging because of the different perspectives. But these are some tips to help us to be able to move forward. The question is here, says, how do you propose to that one deal with the persistent individual who refuses to hear, refuses to hear another's point of view? Yes, so sometimes you leave them. Sometimes the hardest thing is to share the information or maybe to hear what their perspective is. I would often say I would share the information I have as to why the perspective I'm having and leave them. Give them time to process it. You may hear me talk about my daughter. We have a lot of conversations because she's a very deep thinker. And she would say to me, Mommy, I want you to give me some guidance on this matter. And I know that you are a very quick thinker. She would tell me that. And she said, but I want to know now. And I said, give me time to process it. Give me time to process it. Sometimes we have to give people time to process it. Not everybody can process things very quickly. You have to give them time to reflect. Sometimes you give information and we want a response right now. Sometimes we have to give time for people to take it away, to come back and maybe ask questions, maybe for us to clarify. It may seem redundant and time wasting, but I often feel it is better for me to spend the time going through that process as opposed to people going away and doing something and then doing it the wrong way or not doing it the way that we want them to do it. So we have to sometimes spend time processing, letting people process the information in order to help get them to get buy-in. Sometimes you may have to go repeated times. You would have heard, and I'm sharing real examples that we are working, this pediatric program that we are delivering is a collaboration between the government of Barbados, the Sick Kids Global Center for Child Health, the Sick Kids Hospital University, and a number of other stakeholders on the ground. Can you imagine multiple stakeholders? Even as we have rolled out the program, there are multiple engagement, and we have to be meeting constantly to clarify perspectives, whether it is from a Canadian perspective, whether it's from a local perspective, whether it's from an organizational perspective. And it may seem redundant, but each time we meet and we clarify, it brings greater buy-in for the aspects of the project as we move along through the different aspects, because the training program is only one aspect of the project. There's infrastructural development, there's also other capacity development and research, but each entity has its stakeholders, and we have to constantly meet to make sure that there's clarity on all fronts so we can get the buy-in that is needed. So I would say, to answer that question again, and to support you going forward, is that you share the information and you give time to process, and you create the opportunity and the space for the person to clarify any challenges or any misconceptions that they may have. So I will proceed now with share. I will go back to the presentation and share my screen. Where am I now? Yeah, here I am. Right, so you've had the videos. So managing difficult conversations allow for having the opportunity to shed light on how to resolve a problem. The opportunity is to embrace constructive change, because we may be looking to move from point A to point B, we're moving from the status quo and it's changed. People get very uncomfortable when something's about to change. They can't see what's the purpose of it. They can't see the bigger vision or the bigger goal. It gives the opportunity to get deeper understanding. And it also gives the opportunity to repair relationships which may be challenged. While having a difficult conversation, it may be important to listen. And we said listening is very key, willing to listen to the other perspectives seriously and respectfully. You should be open to adjusting your perceptions when we are experiencing new information, because sometimes we have our perspective, but then when we hear another perspective, you say, oh shoot, yeah, I didn't really think about it like that. And then you begin to see, okay, I can actually adapt and change things and make them different and do better in the long term. And the other thing is to be realistic and fair with our expectations. Sometimes we have some very ambitious goals and expectations, and then we expect people to move from like zoom from one point to get from here right up there. But I always believe in incremental change. You give a little bit, you move a little bit more. You give a little bit, you give a little bit more. And one of the things I often share, you guys are midwives, I don't like to throw the baby with the bath water. Sometimes we want to change so much too, that we want to throw everything. And like the baby in the bath water, instead of only throwing out the dirty water after we bathe the baby, we want to throw the baby too. So you don't trouble what is working. You keep what is working, and then you seek to address and improve on the other areas. So this sometimes create difficult conversations, but it is important. Sometimes it may be good to have a difficult conversation because it opens up and gives us the opportunity to really share our innermost thoughts. Sometimes in having difficult conversations, sometimes when we are trying to advocate for our patients or ourselves, these are difficult conversations. And this leads me now into the area, and I'm checking the time. This leads me into the area of advocacy. What is patient advocacy? So we have a scenario. A client has experienced a serious and unexpected medical problem. Several different doctors they have never met before have rushed through into the room and gives confusing information using language which the client does not understand. None of them stop to listen. It has 2 stops to listen to the client's concern. The client feels scared, powerless, and unsure as to who to turn to. That is something that we meet every single day. And Pat Carroll says advocacy is being the voice for the patients who don't know whom to turn or how to fight for themselves or their loved ones. And that is very, very critical. That is what advocacy is. Now, it is defined by the Alliance for Justice as an action that speaks in favor of, recommends, argues for a cause, supports or defends or pleads on behalf of others. As we know, health and social care advocacy means supporting people who are unable to ensure their best interests are being taken care of. And even as we speak about our patients, we as nurses sometimes don't advocate for ourselves either. And if we are not able to advocate for ourselves, how can we advocate for our patients? If we are not even able to represent the rights and interests that we deserve. The ultimate objectives in health and social care advocacy are to ensure that the client's voice, the views and experiences are heard and treated with appropriate respect. And when I speak to the client here, I'm speaking to us as nurses and midwives as well. Because it begins at home. The home drum has to beat first. As we represent our clients, we also need to represent ourselves. And I'm not only talking about the whole thing about union representation. I'm talking generally about us representing ourselves in our work, in our workplaces, in our clinical sites. If we have a colleague who speaks, who brings a prescription and you don't agree, and you're able to speak up and say, I don't agree. Do you want to check this? Do you want to make sure that this is the correct dosage? I once had a case where, this is years ago, so my Barbadian colleagues won't even know who I'm talking about. I was working on a particular ward. It was the orthopedic ward at the time. And this client we had brought in, he came in with a fractured mandible, but he was also an epileptic. And he was on, the medical doctor had him on Dilantin, 300 milligrams Nocte at night. And every single day around midday, the man would have a seizure. Now we know the therapeutic level of Dilantin will drop if it is given at a particular, that high dosage is given at a particular time. And I remember I was a young staff nurse at the time, and I approached the doctor and I said to him by name, Dr. So-and-so, he was a house officer, he was a senior house officer or registrar at the time. And I said to him, Dr. So-and-so, I noticed that this gentleman by name, he's having a seizure every day. And I also noticed that he's getting 300 milligrams of Dilantin at night. He said to me, yes, so what? I said, well, I would like to respectfully suggest that maybe you could consider dividing the doses and giving 150 milligrams BD. 150 in the morning, 150 in the evening. It will spread the level of they give the therapeutic level to spread across the 12 to 24 hours. So he said, I don't know. Anyhow, I went off duty, and when I came back the next day, it was changed. So that's a story to say that you don't want to tell somebody what to do, but if we have to demonstrate that we have the knowledge and skills. And when I reflect now on that case, I was advocating for that patient. So that is what we mean. So this is real scenarios. And as I say, at the time I was doing it because every time this guy, he came in with a fractured mandible because he had a seizure and he fractured his mandible. Why are we going to have him falling or having a seizure in hospital when we can address the treatment level? So that is where advocacy is. Now, I like this diagram. This is a diagram that we use in the pediatric program to speak to social justice. But I also wanted to use it here because this is the perspectives of our clients. We have the reality, and look at the reality. The reality is that they have some people who have access all the way up, who have things beyond measure, who have so much that they don't know what to do with it. Then you have the man in the middle who barely can see over the fence. But then the reality for some people down in a hole. That is the reality. We speak to equality and we say we want equality, but equality is everybody on the same level box, but we are all different heights. So you have the guy who is tall and he's well above the fence, the guy whose head is just above it, and then we have the guy who's trying to peek through the fence because he's not tall enough, although he has the same resources that the others have. Then we have equity. We have equity where we get that two of them, that one of them, well, the other guy that is tall enough to look over gives his block to the other guy so that he can see, and all of them are on the same level. But then you know what? We also have social justice where there are no barriers and everybody can see the game at hand. So I just wanted to bring this to you to give us the perspectives of the clients that we're dealing with. And sometimes our clients are ourselves as nurses and midwives. We are our customers. We are the customers too. Because unless we can go in another country and receive the care, we have to receive the care right here, right in our countries, in our region. So I just wanted to share this slide on perspectives. So advocacy in nursing, there are 5 ways. I brought in this slide to show you that we are superheroes. You see the shadow and the cape. And I want to share 5 ways which we can assist our clients going forward. And these are, we need to get to know our patients. We need to know their perspective. Remember the perspective there with the reality, the equality, the equity, and the social justice. We need to know our patients. Then when we know them, we can educate them. We can share information with them. And I tell you now, with the internet now, sometimes you've got to be, not sometimes, you've got to be really on your toes. I mean, they got fake news and everything, but you got to be on toes because the people going out and they're searching. And it's not an indictment on you if you don't know, but I always, up to yesterday, was telling a group of students, remember the days when we didn't have all these drug books and these quick references. We used to take the script out of the manufacturer's box when the different drugs come around, and we would learn the medication and their side effects. These are things that we have thrown out somewhere along the line, but are still important. Yes, we can go online. Yes, we can Google and whatever, but these are still some things that had worked. And therefore, and if you came on if there was a new condition that you had never heard about and you met it on the ward, you went and you researched it. Even as a registered nurse or midwife, you researched it because it's something that was new and unique. And you were able then to speak to it, because when the client says to you, nurse, what is this medication for? It doesn't look like the tablet that I'm accustomed to taking. You need to know that there was a change in manufacturer, but it is the same medication. And therefore, you should be able to explain to the patient, although it looks different, it's a different brand name, but it's doing the same thing that it would do to your hypertension, to your diabetes, or whatever. So we need to be knowledgeable, demonstrate that we have the knowledge. I know we have the knowledge, but sometimes we seem afraid to share the knowledge or what we know. Tell your patients about their rights, where their patient's Bill of Rights. Patients should be aware of their rights. Sometimes we confuse people too by not by using medical jargon. The idea is also to translate the medical jargon. And remember your responsibility to your patient. Very, very critical. I thought I would share too with these the FRIDA principles. And these are principles which speaks to the whole thing of social justice and equality and equity. And the FRIDA, which is fairness, meaning ensuring that when a decision is made with a person using the service about their care and support, that the person is at the center of the decision-making process. Respect is the objective, unbiased consideration and regard for rights, values, beliefs, and property of other people. We have people with different religions. We need to respect them. We need to respect what they are comfortable with, but also make them aware of what is available from a medical perspective, and maybe how it may or may not impact the care that we will be giving to them. We had equality means people having equal opportunity and being treated no less favorably than other people on the ground set out in any legislation. And we saw equality, but we saw inequality. If people even are not on the same level, there may be some level of inequality. Dignity means treating people with compassion and in a way that means values them as human beings and supports their self-respect, even if their wishes are not known at the time. And as I speak to this about patients, I think we need to speak to this as well as about our colleagues and how we engage with them as well. And autonomy is the ability of a person to direct how they live on a day-to-day basis according to the personal values, beliefs, and preferences. So people have their autonomy, and sometimes as healthcare providers, I know we want to do the best for persons, but taking away that autonomy is emotional and a psychological thing of loss of control. So we have to remember that psychology. Here's a person, when I have to go into hospital or have any kind of medical procedure, you know how I'm sometimes afraid I am, because even as a healthcare practitioner, you're losing control of your own ability. Can you imagine when your clients come, how they feel they're losing control of their life and that independence that they so well they have cherished. So these freedom principles help us to focus more on what advocacy means and what it means to us, but certainly what it means to our clients. I am wrapping up now shortly, and as I move through, I want us to recognize that nurses are advocates, and nurses are advocates at various levels. With the patient, which is key, and I have some notes associated with that. Well, patient advocacy has been long viewed as an essential part of nursing. Some experts cite the need for better understanding of exactly what it entails. And then it says these include protecting patients from harm, like I sought to do with that guy. I didn't even know that is what I was doing at the time. Communicating patient preferences, fostering collaboration, providing essential information to inform decision-making, and being a voice for the patient regarding choices and care. In the workplace, nurses need to learn to advocate more for themselves. They're doing this through a variety of activities to address concerns in the workplace, promote positive work environments, and advocate for the important role that nurses play in the healthcare system. Examples include membership on key practice committees. So when President and her team says to you, I want you to sit on a committee, I want you to go on a task force, I want you to represent the association, don't say not me. Say, take on the opportunity. This is how I learned to speak. When they told me, come and join the CNO, come and join the Nurses Association, it gives you the opportunity to learn more. And mentoring new nurses, collaborating with nursing leaders, and working with other people. Advocacy is also in the community. Nurses also directly advocate for patients in different instances. Example, sharing stories regarding healthcare costs. What are some of the challenges, especially nurses who work in the community setting? What are some of the challenges that you see clients face when you go into the community, into the households, and into their environment? You need to come back and say, look, we are saying that we need these persons to do these things, but these are some of the challenges they're faced with, and let us see how we can address it. The nursing profession itself needs advocates. Example, every nurse has the opportunity to advocate for the profession, both formally and informally. By acting collectively, nurses advocate for improvements in their work settings and for advancement of the profession. I believe in education. Education is moving you from one level to the next. Sometimes people say, oh, you only adding on your qualifications and think, no, there's something called application to practice. When you gain that knowledge, you bring it back to the practice environment and you improve the environment. So I always believe in education. You never always, once you're living, there's opportunity to learn. Examples include describing strengths of the profession and the positive patient outcomes. And last but not least, political and public policy change. Many nurses who work at the microsocial level may feel intimidated by policy advocacy. and may not know how to get involved. However, the expertise, and I'm talking about being engaged when the minister or the permanent secretary or somebody says, please give me your opinion on something, be able to write that proposal with all the recommendations and the data you heard in that, Ms. Brown in her tips of in dealing difficult conversations, have your data. We complain and we say, oh, this is the problem, that is the problem, but where is the data? We need to bring the research, we need to bring the data. That is what challenges the policy makers to be able to address the issues. And this is where I'm going to ask Ms. Rollock, I am going to be wrapping up here. This is what advocacy looks like. Excellence in communicating, providing educators, asserting yourself, and being political. I'm trying to find out what it is I wrote there. Or being informed, This is what nursing advocacy looks like, asserting yourself, being political. And the political I'm talking about is not partisan politics. It's not partisan politics. It is being au fait with what is happening in the political scheme of things, listening to the political debates in the houses of parliament, because that is where the estimates of expenditure determine the resources that you are going to get or not get. This is where they're going to be asking you to prepare your budgets. This is where your budgets are voted for in parliament. So if you are not able to give information and data to support why you should get what you need to get, this is where you will be challenged. And this is the political I'm talking about. Being informed, excellent communication skills, and providing education, whether you are the provider or whether you're the person who is going to be provided with that particular information. So at this point, I just wanted to, I'm going to stop sharing. These are my references. And I just want to thank you, but I want to end with this video that Ms. Rollock is going to show. I want to thank you, but I'm going to end with this video, Nurses as Advocates.
I'm Mimi Brown.
No, that one.
And I'm going to cover with you 5 practical tips.
The other one. Right. Scroll down the next. There's the last one. There's the last one. Yeah.
Right.
Go up.
There were 3 videos in that last year. The last one.
Just scroll back up.
Yeah, scroll down. Scroll down. That one.
Right. Nurses Advocate. Yeah.
What do you think when someone says to you, you should get involved more in healthcare policy? If you're like most nurses, you probably think, not for me. I just want to take care of my patients and leave policy to the politicians. What? Leave healthcare policy to the politicians? How's that working out? Well, all sarcasm aside, nurses really do have more influence than they think they do. Did you know that according to Gallup's latest honesty and ethics survey, nurses rank at the very top and are the most trusted of all professionals? Nurses are believable and therefore can be very influential. And who understands the patient's experience better than the nurse? Nurses can make the patient's story come alive. You can get involved in grassroots advocacy by getting involved in issues that you care about. Legislators love to hear from nurses because they know that nurses care about their constituents. Meet Pam. Pam is a home care nurse who cares for a disabled teen, Eric, who is wheelchair bound. Pam noticed that Eric's dad had to carry him up and down the stairs to get him in and out of the house, to go to school, and to the doctors. There was no ramp at the home, and the state's ramp program had run out of money. Pam picked up the phone to call the local county commissioner, who actually came out to the house to do a home visit and an assessment. As a result, a ramp was installed with county funds, and Eric and his family are grateful for Pam's intervention. And meet Jennifer. Jennifer has taken care of Chip, who was on a ventilator since he was a baby, but now he's ready to go to school. Chip's state did not allow agency nurses to go to school with children. Jennifer contacted her state senator, and with the assistance from her agency, helped him write a bill to allow children to go to school with agency nurses and to ensure that agencies are all properly licensed and accredited. So now Jennifer accompanies Chip to school every day to attend to his medical needs, so Chip can focus on learning. Another happy family, thanks to the nurse. And meet Tandi. Tandi is a student nurse caring for residents at an assisted living facility. Tandi noticed that the sidewalks around the assisted living facility were cracked and warped. She heard from the residents that they're afraid to venture out of doors for fear they will fall. Tandi was sad for the residents because she knows how important it is for them to get out and get exercise. So Tandi got on the internet to learn who was responsible for sidewalk repair. In just a few short strokes, she learned that the city of Boston.gov has a link to the Public Works and Utilities Department, and there is a form for requesting sidewalk repair. So Tandi completed it and got a call back in just a few days. And she told the story about the residents being afraid to venture out. Within 2 weeks, the sidewalk was repaired and the residents were outside enjoying the beautiful weather. And Tandi learned that it's not always who you know, but what you do. So get involved. What do you care about?
Great. Good. So with that, I want to thank you for having me, and I welcome any questions or comments at this time. Madam Moderator.
I haven't seen any. There was a question in the chat before. I'm not sure if you would want to deal with it. It was about how would you guide a health practitioner who desires training in quality management, standards, policies, etc., such as schooling, training, courses, duration, etc.
Oh, you sound like you're looking to do the master's in nursing administration. I would certainly recommend a postgraduate program. And as I said, well, I coordinate a program in master's in nursing admin. Well, it's 2 specializations right now that we deliver, education and administration, but certainly for that program, and I am not, there are other programs, but I can speak to the program that I'm familiar with. We do courses, there are core courses that both the educators and administrators complete, and policy and ethical issues in nursing and healthcare is one of the key components. The students are taught how to really advocate, how to be policy agents, and they actually have to write a policy brief. So it gives you the idea and experience, but certainly any postgraduate diploma or master's program which has an element of management and administration, I would certainly recommend, because what these programs do, they expose you to not only the theoretical knowledge, but the practical aspects of the program and how you can manage and apply your knowledge and skills that, that you gain to real life situations. I hope that I have answered the question, but feel free to reach out if you want, if you need further guidance. My email, Wendy, WENDY.SEALY@kphil.ue.edu. And I'll be happy to share any particular guidance that you may need. But certainly, people always say it's just having a master's or postgraduate qualification. But for me, it is always strengthening your knowledge and skills beyond the bedside and beyond your technical abilities as an RN or a midwife to move to another level.
Okay,
That's one question, Wendy. Is your program an online program or is it face-to-face at this time?
Okay, so as we started before the pandemic, it was fully face-to-face, but we have now almost, I would say, developed a hybrid format where aspects of our program are delivered online and aspects, as you would imagine, are face-to-face. We've recently expanded our program to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we have a relationship with the St. Vincent and Grenadines Community College, where part of the students are in St. Vincent and have been receiving classes face-to-face with selected persons once they meet the criteria that we require for our master, yes, for lecturer. But most recently, we've had them now on the online format with a summer course where there wasn't the expertise on the ground there. So we are delivering right now in a hybrid format, and we continue to do that, and the pandemic has not gone. So we still have to be concerned about the safety and numbers and that kind of stuff. So that's where we are right now.
Sure. Okay. I just wanted to add something as well. When you spoke about having the difficult conversations, now if you have to have a difficult conversation with somebody who is, say, aggressive or bordering in subordination, how would you go about having that difficult conversation?
I think one of the things is to the first thing I would do is to invite them to have the conversation first and determine which is the best setting. I think it will be also important to have somebody else with you because that will be critical for diffusing any possible one-on-one backward and forward. I think it may be critical to have someone. One of the things too, though, I would prefer, and this is not putting on my lens, my psychiatric lens, is that I would prefer the person to be calm. If the person is aggressive, you're going to be hitting a brick wall. I would prefer to wait till when the person calms down and then try to address the issue if that allows it. Because trying to get somebody when they're angry, I see it play out in personal and professional situations. When somebody's angry, it's not the best time to be able, because they're not thinking clearly. So the idea is to really get them as calm as possible and find things that even let them raise the scenario. Sometimes you raising it, sometimes the individual who may be the center of it raising it may not be. Wait to the opportunity for them to bring it up. And that helps because it means that they are at a point, a comfort level with addressing it without getting angry or without being so agitated and move from there. But there's no one prescription. To me, is these things you have to almost treat on a case by case basis. And as you would say, I think in Trinidad, suss out.
There was a comment about somebody commented about the information shared is information that is required to address everyday situations as managers and leaders. Yes, because you gave us a lot of information and practical demonstration, practical examples of how to, deal with difficult conversation, as well as information on the advocacy, something that we really need to pay attention to, particularly now with our clients.
And I didn't raise it in this session, but one of the things too that we often have difficult time with is performance appraisal, when we have to share appraisal information. And one of the things that there's a video that I use with these students. I teach them human resources for health as well. And one of the things that we have is the way that we manage performance appraisal meetings. Those can be difficult conversations, especially for middle managers who have to supervise persons and then have to write a report on them. Those can be difficult conversations, especially where persons may not think that they got the type of grading that they felt they should have gotten. And one of the things we often say is to have the data. And I know that you said that one of the presenters said in the videos that it's important to have the data, have the facts. When you are able to, when you make a comment about why the person performance, have the facts to back it up. And we shouldn't be waiting for once a year to do appraisal. We need to be at least 2 meetings, at least 2, possibly 3, if we can meet, because the idea is to set the goals at the beginning of the year, be able to come back mid-year to say what have you accomplished, what you haven't accomplished, so that by the end of the year, at the final meeting, there's opportunity, there won't be any surprises. The persons, and you won't have to have that difficult conversation because whatever would have been put in place, whether it's equipment or resources or training or whatever, to support the individual in actually being able then to accomplish their goals and objectives. So I know performance appraisal meetings can be very touchy, depending on how people feel they perform or didn't perform. So I thought that would be another difficult conversation that you may have as well.
Yes, and we're having performance evaluation on next week. It's a topic all by itself. So
yes. Oh, okay. Okay.
So they will get more on that.
Of course.
Next week.
Yes, because that could be another difficult conversation, for sure.
For sure. Yes.
Yeah. For sure.
All right. I haven't seen any other questions in the chat. Just to say, someone mentioned the presentation was awesome, highly informative and very interactive, and can be easily applied to everyday situation as managers and leaders. Yes.
Very well. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. And ladies, there's the Google form in the chat. Please fill the Google forms as part of the program. You need to fill the forms. As Dr. Silly said, we need the data. So please.
Of course, because this will inform how you plan next time, what you need to focus on and so on. So that's great.
So I haven't seen any more questions. So Dr. Silly, we want to thank you very much for your presentation. Very informative, very down to earth and practical and applicable to everyday situations. So we want to thank you very much for giving of your time and coming to us tonight and sharing all this information that you have shared with us. Thank you very much.
On a Friday night.
On a Friday night. I made it from the time I was at Mona studying. I said,